One thing that I've never been able to understand with the new fight fans, especially the Floyd Mayweather fans, because I heard another Floyd Mayweather fan recently say that Floyd would have beat every fighter that was on Sugar Ray Robinson's resume during Sugar Ray Robinson's legendary streak. I don't believe that to be true. He would have a better chance if he got to go back in the time machine and rejuvenate his hands for every fight. What you have to understand is that Sugar Ray Robinson did this on a busy schedule. He had to beat a lot of Iron Men warriors that you guys don't know. So let's look at some of the warriors and see who it is that Sugar Ray Robinson fought on his legendary streak. Can Floyd beat all of these guys in a row like Sugar Ray Robinson did? Now you have to realize that Floyd would not have had a lot of the advantages he has today. Also, his small hands would have been a problem. Just listen to what his right hand man, Leonard Ellerby, has to say about this.
He unfortunately in a lot of cases over the years, he has naturally small hands, so that's been a problem. And I tell you what, if that man wouldn't have had hand problems.
Now, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but if is a weak word when making a legacy comparison. If he didn't have hand problems, could have, should have, if, all of that shit, right? All of that falls into the same category. The fact is, Ray Robinson didn't have the small hands that Floyd Mayweather has. He didn't have those small, fragile hands. You have to give Ray Robinson his Iron Man credit for doing what he did, for going on that legendary streak, a streak that I don't think Floyd Mayweather was built for. So you could sit up here and say that he would have beat everybody on the resume and don't know one of those fighters. That's the thing that kills me, is that the guys who usually say that, I'm usually not on those panels when I hear them say this type of stuff. But my question to them would be, hey, name 10 of these fighters. Name 10 of them, right? The streak was definitely over 90, and we're going to count them in a second because I always get a different number with the streak, right? From what I believe, it was over 90, close to 100 or something like that, right? I'm going to manually count them. But if you're going to talk like that, you have to know who those guys are. He would have beat everybody on that resume. You don't know that, man. Number one, he would not have had all the advantages that he has today and taking time off, like Leonard Ellerby said. Hold on a second. Let's look at some more Leonard Ellerby.
His hands have obviously gotten better over the years. That's why he's had to take a lot of time off, and he has a hand therapist, and but he just has naturally small hands.
A little bit of time off, a hand therapist, all the things that he would not have had if he was in Sugar Ray Robinson's time period. He wouldn't have had all that stuff. You guys don't mention that because you don't read about the eras. You don't know that that era is different. When you talk like that, automatically, you do not know that that era is different. Just think about that. For somebody to mention that he would have beat every fighter on that streak, they really do not know what they're talking about. It's just common sense. It's common sense, man. No, he would not have beat every fighter during that legendary streak. I doubt it very seriously. Can I name 20 of the fighters right now that were on the streak? Nah, I don't think I can. And if I can't name 20 of the fighters, you can. That's why we're going to look at it together, right? My guess is that he would not be able to hold up.
That's what
I was looking for the knockout.
Yeah.
If you look right here, when I was throwing the hook, I stopped throwing the jab for a while because I hurt my left and my right hand. My two knuckles dropped.
Did you broke your hand?
I don't know. But, things happen.
By the look of Floyd's hand right here, he's basically missing two of his knuckles. I don't even see them. I'm not really sure how he's going to hold up or stack up against Sugar Ray Robinson's Iron Man credentials with these type of hands right here. Floyd admitted himself that he has brittle hands. He would not have got the time off and all of that. So I'm not really sure why you guys are trying to take away from Sugar Ray Robinson's legacy. What would really be beneficial would be for somebody to understand Sugar Ray Robinson's legacy, because I can't cover all the different eras and all the different fighters at one time. I'll get to Sugar Ray Robinson on my Retro Boxing and Documentaries page. But what would really be impressive would be for somebody to name like some of the fighters and things like that, rather than just saying, he'd beat everybody in Sugar Ray Robinson's facts, right? because that's what you guys like to do. And then you like to throw in the word facts after, like somebody's supposed to believe that or something, right? You can't even name 5 of them. I bet you could have named 3 of those guys. Couldn't even name 3 of them on a streak that went around 100 fights. You couldn't even name 3 of them, and you out here trying to take away from somebody's legacy with somebody who got hands like this, right? With these hands, Floyd Mayweather would have just been another forgotten fighter in history. A talented fighter that would not have had all these privilege advantages, safety first, Leonard Ellerbe and all of these guys to take care of you. He wouldn't have had none of that shit back then, right? You think in Sugar Ray Robinson time period that somebody's going to listen to some fighter with fragile hands? He would have had to show and prove to get the say. He would have had to show and prove and do something like what Sugar Ray Robinson did back then and get a 90-something or 100 fight winning streak, right? He would have to do something really good like what Ray Robinson did to even get a small percentage of the advantages that he has had in his career.
Not getting in the ring tomorrow night, fighting him with those gloves on. That's not happening. Period. Point blank. I don't care what anybody say. That's not happening. So we can come up with, he can wear another pair of Grants, or well, I ain't gonna say names specifically. Another pair of gloves.
Safety first, protection committees. It must really be nice. Leonard Ellerbe would have had no say in the 1940s and 1950s. Them people would have looked at Leonard Ellerbe like he lost his damn mind. Pretty much the only black people who had any kind of say was people like Jack Johnson or people who had fought in the ring, right? And they didn't have this kind of say right here. No black man would have had this kind of power in Sugar Ray Robinson's time period. The only person who would have said that, hey, I don't want to go out there and fight would have been Sugar Ray Robinson himself. And Sugar Ray Robinson had to put in the work, had to put in the Iron Man work to earn that motherfucking say. Okay, so let's look through Sugar Ray Robinson's legacy. Let's go to page 2 here. Now, the streak began after his loss to Jake LaMotta in the early 40s. So let's go down here and see if we can find that. Let's go down here. Let's go down here. Okay, here's the loss right here to Jake LaMotta. It happened in February of 1943. So this is where you're going to have to place Floyd Mayweather. You got to place him in February of 1943. Jake LaMotta was a middleweight. As you can see right here, Jake LaMotta was weighing in at 160 pounds for the fight. Sugar Ray Robinson weighed in at 144 pounds. The streak started after the loss to Jake LaMotta. So let's take Floyd and put him in a time machine into February of 1943, because this is the realistic way to do it, rather than just saying, oh, he'll beat all of them. He'll beat everybody that's on Sugar Ray Robinson's resume. Facts! Just because you don't know the fighters. I don't know a lot of these guys either. This guy right here, California Jackie Wilson, would have been Floyd's first fight on the streak. This guy right here. Now, this guy was a welterweight for real, for real. Maybe Floyd would have got through this fight, right? Of course, he would have been fighting with smaller gloves. At least California Jackie Wilson here is an actual welterweight, because looking at his weights here, which they have all this shit documented, right? He's actually a welterweight. He only was stopped 4 times. Now, if you take him down to this era where he fought Sugar Ray Robinson, let's see where he was at this time. That's how you do this shit, right? This is how you do it. He went the distance with Jake LaMotta in January of 43. Okay, he went the distance with him. He went the distance with Ray Robinson. At this time, ain't nobody stopping this guy. He has a few losses in here. This is a tough fight for Floyd in 1943, right? Look at this guy. Look at all these wins he's coming off of. Okay, so he had 1 knockout loss right here, right? Lots of wins during the time. This guy's young at the time. I just don't think that Floyd would have knocked this guy out easy and beat him up really easy, right? Right after that, he gets another fight with Jake LaMotta, who's again weighing in at 160 pounds, over 160 pounds. So right after that, after fighting California Jackie Wilson, Floyd would have had to fight Jake LaMotta, a middleweight. There wouldn't have been no catch weight. He wouldn't have been able to say, hey, let's look at Jake LaMotta's gloves to see if there's any extra padding. None of that shit, right?
Not getting in the ring tomorrow night, fighting him with those gloves on. That's not happening. Period. Point blank.
What if his hands broke against a bigger, stronger Jake LaMotta? Can Floyd Mayweather really beat Jake LaMotta? Really? Can he really beat the 160-pound Jake LaMotta? There's nobody on his resume that tells me that he could beat Jake LaMotta other than Canelo Alvarez. That's a pretty big guy. Canelo, right? But I'm not really sure if he could have beat a pressure fighter like Jake LaMotta with his fragile hands and having none of those safety measures, safety first and all of that shit. I'm not really sure. Look at this right here. Henry Armstrong's coming up. But anyways, we have a few more fighters to present here. This guy here is weighing in at 151 pounds. We got another fighter here weighing in at 147. Now, I'm not an expert of the 1940s, so it would take a scrapbook boxing or a boxing librarian to really understand these guys a little bit better, some of these guys right here. But I doubt very seriously that Floyd would have walked through any of these guys, right? I doubt it very seriously. I would say that he probably will win this fight here, right? He'll win this fight, probably beat this guy right here too, maybe. I don't know. This guy has quite a bit of wins. I'm not really sure. I mean, where's all the cab drivers at? These guys fight a lot more than the ones today. So if we take it back to 43 on this guy, I mean, he's fighting experienced fighters, guys that have well over nearly 200 fights and shit like this guy, right? This guy right here. Henry Armstrong after that. Bigger guys. Look at this. 158 pounds on this guy. So at what time do you think Floyd's hands would have failed him? I'm not even sure if he could beat an Henry Armstrong, right? To be real, I'm not sure if he... So far, there's only been 5 fights of this long-ass streak. Within the first 5 fights, right? I see 2 guys who are capable, in my opinion, of beating Floyd. I don't know for sure if Floyd could have beat Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta's a fucking big guy, 160 pounds. I'm not sure if he could have beat him with small gloves and all of that stuff and not having the safety measures in place, right? I'm not sure if he could have beat Henry Armstrong. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if he could have held up for very long. I think that Floyd would have broke down. Here's another Jake LaMotta fight. All of these guys right here, I can't really do them a lot of justice, but one day I will be able to, right? But I do believe by the time he got to Jake LaMotta a second time, his hands would have fell off, man. Look how busy his schedule would have been. The fight here in January the 10th, and then the fight again on January the 16th. I just don't think he would have been able to hold up, bro. There's another fight with Jake LaMotta. You just heard Leonard Ellaby said the hand therapist, the time off, we was able, if he didn't have hand problems,
He unfortunately in a lot of cases over the years, he has naturally small hands, so that's been a problem. And I tell you what, if that man wouldn't have had hand problems,
right? So don't take away from Sugar Ray Robinson's Iron Man achievement. That's part of what makes him who he is. That's a big part of it. He would not have walked through these guys. These guys have way too much experience in fights. There's a lot of guys on here, man. I don't know all of these guys, man. Some of them I've heard of, but these guys are tough guys, man, right? In fact, they look better than most of what's on Floyd Mayweather's resume. Most of these guys do. And some of these guys are really big guys, too. He wouldn't have been able to complain about these guys coming in as middleweights and all kind of shit. Non-title bouts and all that kind of stuff against middleweights and shit like that. You got Kid Gavilan, right? This guy's still going through his streak, and now we got the Kid Gavilan. And streak just continues to go on. Let me count these up because there's some draws in here too. So I guess the streak would be this many certain fights without a loss. That's what the streak is because there's some draws in this thing too, right? So we're going to just go ahead and count them up manually ourselves right now. Let me start it out and we'll kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I counted it and I got 92 is what I got. I'll recount it, but it's somewhere in the 90s, okay? I'm going to go with Box Red. I've heard 94 before. I've heard 96. So maybe there's a few fights missing. There could be. Box Red does have a few fights every now and then that's missing. If they don't have documentation of it, they're not going to put it there. So I'm counting 92. I'll do a recount, but I know it's over 90 fights. And looking back at some of these guys, especially once you start getting into the 1950s and stuff, these guys are getting really big, man. I don't think Floyd Mayweather's hands could have held up against these guys, man. Towards the end of the streak to be fighting the big old jokers that are middleweights and stuff like that, right? I don't think he could have held up, bro. I don't see anything that tells me Floyd Mayweather would have beat all of these guys on the resume. I just don't believe it. If you take him back for one fight against each guy where his hands can rejuvenate for every fight, I'm not really sure about the bigger guys on here. Some of these bigger dudes, I'm not really sure about some of these guys, right? I'm not sure if he could have beat some of these big jokers. You guys could go back and call these guys bums and all kind of stuff. These guys have a lot of fights. They're way more experienced than the fighters of today. They're much tougher than the fighters of the day. He had a tough time in his prime with a small Castillo. Why should I believe that he's going to beat some big old middleweight type motherfuckers, huh? Why should I believe that, huh? Why should I believe any of that at all? Man, these guys got a lot of fights, man. I don't really know how Floyd could have held up to beat all these different experienced fighters like this. I just don't see it, man. Smaller gloves. I just don't see it, man. I don't see it. This just doesn't make any sense, man. To think that Floyd Mayweather could beat all of these guys like back to back. I don't get that. He fought Ike Williams. Okay. Damn, this guy got a victory over Ike Williams. This guy right here. This guy got some pretty impressive stuff on his record here. Pressed fight over some of the guys that this guy here beat. Shit, I don't know. I don't know if Floyd could have beat him after already being in 80-something fights in a row with his small-ass brittle hands. I don't know much about him. I don't know much about this brother here, but he looks like a pretty tough brother. He's got some pretty impressive names on his resume. Ask Scrapbook about that one there. My boy Johnny Bratton right there. Johnny Bratton. I don't see it, bro. I don't think so, man. I just don't think he could have beat every fighter on the resume. I'm not even sure if he got to rejuvenate his hands for every fight if he would still win some of these fights. There's a lot of guys that I believe would beat Floyd. The bigger guys, I question all of them. All the guys that are bigger, because Floyd didn't fight very many bigger guys like Ray Robinson did. Ray Robinson was a welterweight when he was fighting these bigger guys, man. When he was fighting some of these big old jokers, man. Right? You guys got to do some reading, man, right? You can't just go around saying Floyd would beat everybody on his resume. Facts! And somebody's supposed to believe that, right? I'm not done with this conversation. I'll get back to this. This is a lot of fighters. I just don't think there's no way in hell a fragile-handed Floyd could make it through this resume. I'm sorry. I just don't believe it. I think you have to be a real fanboy to not see that this is going to be a very difficult task for somebody like Floyd Mayweather. I'm out of here.
That's what
I was looking for the knockout.
Yeah.
You know, if you look right here, when I was throwing the hook, I stopped on the jab for a while because I hurt my left and my right hand. My two knuckles dropped.
Think you broke your hand?
I don't know. But, you know, things happen.